Hello, and welcome. My name is MiniBetrayal, and this is Factorio 1 per minute, episode 20. This should be the series finale with one slight addition at the end of it. We are done. We have one great big factory here that supplies one of every item each and every minute, indefinitely. Asterisk. So, since the end of the last episode, I have done what is actually an enormous amount of work. So the biggest thing you will see is that we now have a massive solar field. I did mention at the end of the last episode that it was getting to the point where the UPS was just not acceptable. Getting rid of my nuclear array and switching it out for solar, that has helped greatly. I'm now running at a smooth 60, and when my base is idle I can even crank it up to about 150 UPS if I want to. When everything starts running, that drops back down to about 60 again, but I'm happy with that. 60 is, I think, reasonable, considering that's what the game is supposed to run at. So for anyone new to the series, we've got the big solar field up here. This bit here, that I'm circling with my mouse now, that is basically a normal base. I completed the game with that. So we've got our smelting up here, we've got a little bit of uranium processing over there, science labs, all the stuff you'd normally see on like a main bus. So we've got 8 lanes and 8 lanes there. Oil processing, kind of overdid it a bit with that, I think, but oh well. Lots and lots of blue circuits. Basically, this base here is designed to cater to 2 science per second. It actually works out at about, instead of 120 science a minute, it works out as about 150 science a minute. Because when I was doing the 2 per second, that was not taking into account the 1.25 crafting speed of the level 3 assemblers. So 150 science a minute. It's mostly wound down. I've just finished launching my 1000th rocket. I was hoping to get that on video, but I was a little bit late. So we've got the next rocket ready to go. 1001. Maybe that's how we'll finish off this episode. Finish off the series, no less. So yes, this bit here is just a starter base, basically. This here is my 1 per minute bus. So it starts off over here. This is a smart train system. That's what all of this light circuit networky stuff. Yeah. Science, the circuity networky stuff is all about. So over here, this display on the left displays how much of each resource I have in my network. This line here, where my mouse is, that is where I want it to be. So it can be above, it can be below. If it goes below, the lights turn red and fancy stuff like that. This one here compares what I have to the average of what I have over the last 20 minutes. So that will be able to tell me if I am dropping low on resources or if I'm slowly building up resources. This one here, this tells me how many trains I have active, basically. So if it's green, so we've got our 7 resources down here. Yes, wood and fish are in-game items. They're on the bus as well. So yes, for each of our 7 solid items, 1 light corresponds to 1 train. So we have 1 wood train, 2 coal trains, 2 stone trains. I think it was like 13 iron trains it worked out to be. Something like that. For each green light, it means that train is in this stacker full and ready to deliver its items. If it turns red, that means it's not there. That might be either because it's unloading in our unloading station, or it might be going off to actually collect more raw resources. This base was built in vanilla. However, for the purposes of testing this, to test the 1 per minute, I've known from previous experience that this can run on trains that go out to these ore patches, like out there. In fact, that one's empty now. There's a tiny bit there. Essentially, instead of expanding and expanding and expanding, partially in the interests of UPS, what I've done is I have given myself 5 nice big deposits here. I did something similar for my starter base with just iron and copper over there. So these are not going to run out anytime soon. There's 20 billion in each of them. Otherwise, there's nothing special about them. They're just a very big concentrated ore deposit. The trains still have to come, the uranium still needs the sulfuric acid, everything like that. And I haven't put them too close either, so the trains do have a little bit of a way to go. All of the other outposts I have decommissioned. So you can see here the station name has _legacy at the front. Haven't actually deleted most of them. I've kept it around. I plan to put this map up so people can actually go and have a look at it for themselves, test it on their own systems. So yeah, I've left the stations out there like that. Fish, slightly different. I said I built the base in vanilla. Mostly true. There are 2 mods that I did use. One is to gather fish automatically. The other one is to gather wood automatically. They are very, very basic mods. One is called Versiples Aquafarm, or Versiples Aquafarm. It introduces this building here, you can see I have highlighted, called an aquafarm. This works by, if you place it near a fish, and I'm talking very near, it's like this kind of radius. If you place it, then it will just infinitely generate fish. So I've built out into the middle of this lake here, and there's a very small logistics network just set up to bring the fish back to the train station. So the fish train doesn't actually have that far to go, but it will go back and forth as needed. Wood. I started trying to do the collecting wood via the bots thing, but then I underestimated how much wood I needed, or overestimated how many trees there were. So in the end, I've kept my wood outpost all the way up here, so this is by far the longest train journey. And then another mod called Tree Cloning introduces this recipe here. It takes 300 seconds. It takes in 1 raw wood and spits out 2 raw wood. So this setup here will just infinitely generate raw wood. And then again a logistics system set up to bring it back to the train station, so the train will hop back and forth. So they are all my solid resources. Water has a train station down here. It's right next to the input, and it just loads almost instantly. I did have 2 water trains. I think one of them got blown up by biters that I accidentally let into my perimeter. And I never bothered replacing it. But 1 water train is more than adequate. Oil, I have 3 oil outposts. 1 down here, 1 down here, and a 3rd one up there. But it turns out I actually only need 2. I've tested this quite extensively, and this one up here, in fact, yeah, if you look at this, so this train has just visited this outpost. All of these pump jacks are running at the sort of base of 2 per second, or very close to. And the same goes for this one here, this outpost. So 3.3 per second, 2.5 per second, 2.9, 2 per second. So that indicates those outposts get visited reasonably often. This one up here, built it ages ago, but it's still running at 15.3, okay, that one's a bad example, 5 per second, but 21.4 per second, 21 per second. This one hardly gets used at all, so there you go. So yeah, these 2 oil outposts are more than enough to supply my needs. Okay, so once everything is unloaded, bots place it onto the main bus, which starts off with lots of iron, lots of copper, and a little bit of everything else. We move straight into smelting, so we have lots of iron smelting, lots of copper smelting, and I have steel smelting underneath it. Then fluids. Now, This is one of the sections I have changed the most since the end of the last episode. Firstly, after I built everything, started testing, batteries just went through the floor. So did a little bit of troubleshooting, checked it against my spreadsheet, and when I made my spreadsheet, I had intended not to mess around with fluid dynamics that much. So everything was going to be transported, as much as possible at least, in barrels. Therefore, the recipe I used for sulfuric acid... Sorry, the recipe I used for barrels... No, the recipe I used for batteries was in terms of barrels of sulfuric acid. And when I changed over to just normal fluids, I did change everything else, but I missed that one. So instead of saying every battery needs, 20 sulfuric acid, is it, for a battery? Yeah. Instead of saying every battery needs 20 sulfuric acid, I was saying every battery needs 0.2 of a sulfuric acid barrel. Except it wasn't. I was actually saying 0.2 sulfuric acid, which was very, very wrong. So, tracing that back, we needed to make more sulfuric acid. Turns out, the one machine can still cope with it, but it needed more sulfur to be put in. A lot more sulfur, which means we actually need a lot more petrol. So I've recalculated all my ratios for this. I needed another 2 oil refineries and another 2 light oil to petrol cracking. I've rejigged my deep storage slightly. There's a circuit network set up here to figure out when to turn on storage of items and when to take the oils out of storage and pump it back into the system, as well as cracking. So if we have way too much heavy oil, it will crack it into light oil and then pump it back. If we have too much light oil, it will pump it into petroleum and then pump it back. If we have too much petroleum, I've kind of cheated here. If we have way too much petroleum, what will happen is it will get pumped down here, it will get turned into solid fuel and then into rocket fuel, which is about the densest I can figure out how to store the stuff, and then just pop it into the system here. Now again, because of testing, I'm using creative mode, so I have this void chest here. Anything that gets into that just disappears. If you want to test the system yourself using just vanilla, just change that out for an iron chest, and this will take a very, very long time for it to fill up, if it ever does. I haven't tested that far ahead. So anyway, all my fuel fluidy stuff is there, along with barreling. Over here we've got our intermediate products in terms. So our uranium processing, Covarex, gears, pipes, batteries, plastic, hell of a lot of copper cable. I did some tweaking with this. I've put lane balances in slightly different places, just to help copper cable throughput. At the moment, copper cable is my biggest problem. Specifically, the copper cable that leads to red circuits. If this fails at any point, it will be because of a lack of red circuits. But anyway, so yeah, that leads into circuits. So we've got green circuit production here, red circuit production here, and blue circuit production here. So by the time we've got to the end of that, all of those 30 lanes of copper cable I had is squeezed down to 1. Where is it? Here it is. There's my 1 lane of copper cable. Everything else goes into either green or red circuits. Yes, this part here is the problem I have. The copper cable into red circuits. These 6 belts here want to be not 100% full, but we need, I think it works out to be about 5.5 belts worth in order to feed the red circuits properly. Yeah, it can't quite keep up with that. This monstrosity of balancing, splitting mess I have here. Firstly, because, designing spaghetti is fun, but is also to help not necessarily balance. It doesn't matter if these 6 belts are balanced, but say we're only getting 4 belts through here, and some of these belts are stopping i.e. they're getting backed up against whatever splitter that they need to come out of. That's what these are doing. So this one here prioritizes going forwards into here and then down into the green circuit production. But any extra will come along the top here and then just get rerouted straight to here. It has helped a lot, but I'm not 100% convinced it will solve the problem altogether. Anyway, after circuits, we have what I've called bits and bobs. So we've got our axes, repair packs, walls, gates, lights, landfill, radars, concrete. And meanwhile, the bus is getting thicker at this point. It's thinned down a little bit from the beginning to there, I think. But yes, here on out, it only gets bigger. So then we have our building stuff. So this is what I've called stuff that you would build a base with. So we've got belts, underground belts, splitters, furnaces, solar panels and accumulators. Quite a few of them are needed for the satellites. Boilers. This one was fun. Yeah, we've got 4 nuclear reactors here. They don't actually produce any power. They only produce used up uranium fuel cells. Because they are produced 1 every 200 seconds, I need 4 of them. Actual nuclear reactors on a bus. Yeah, so they join the bus there. So I have a lot of nuclear reactors just sitting on a belt at the moment. So yeah, we've also got power poles and things like that. Then inserters, assembly machines, and modules. Modules are part of what leads to my issue with the red circuits, because they eat all of them, or nearly all of them. It's one of the things that maybe in hindsight I would have put the modules further towards the end of the bus. I don't know, because once the modules start producing anything after them on the bus that needs the red circuits, they start having a bit of issues, particularly like the personal robot ports right at the very end. And then on the other side we've got inserters, also mining drills and engine units. Next we have our military and rocketry section. So lots of ammunition, grenades, and our stuff we need for rockets, so rocket fuel, low density structures, rocket control units, satellites, rocket silos as well, and nuclear fuel. Any spare nuclear fuel we have is picked up by a train that visits this station, goes back over to our train station over here and drops it off where it gets loaded into the trains. So that's what keeps our trains going. Oh, back to the map view. Then we have our 7 science packs and labs as well. So red science, green science, blue science, military science, production science, high-tech science, and space science. Another interesting fact about a megabase, this is about the only megabase I've ever seen which launches rockets so slowly, because I only need to launch 1 rocket every 1,000 minutes to keep up with the 1 space science per minute. So there you go. After science we have storage and transport, so chests, vehicles and rail stuff. And then production and logic, so production buildings like oil refineries, centrifuges, etc., robots as well, and circuit network stuff, so power switches, speakers, red and green wires. Down here we have weaponry, so handheld weaponry that is, guns, capsules and combat robots. And the last section is our armour, plus a couple of extra things that I missed. So we've got the offshore pump, the pump and cliff explosives, and then armour, and then armour components for the modular and power armours. Very last we have blueprints, deconstruction planners and blueprint books. Now these are not really craftable items, so I've kind of cheated on how I'm testing with those ones, but we'll get to those in a minute. In the meantime, let's actually move over to my testing area. I've got a train parked over here that I can catch. Okay, let's hop in the train and move to PAX testing. So again, if you're new to the series, all the passenger stations are called PAX, and I have a passenger train that you can call to you and go out and visit any of those stations. Important ones to note are PAX testing, so the end of the bus, PAX Omni here, which is essentially the beginning of the bus, and any outposts you want to visit are called PAX Outpost, like this one here. They are disabled by default rather. If you want to enable it so you can visit it, click on the station, uncheck that, and it will enable the station, and then recheck it to disable the station. That way you can choose which outpost you want to go to. So this is my testing area. This is all new since the since the end of the last episode. Essentially what we have is each belt feeds into... in fact, let me just copy this. So if I copy that over there, we can go and have a look at it. Okay, so the belt feeds in. They are taken off by inserters into a chest, and then into a provider chest. All of these inserters, they have their override stack size set to 1, and they are enabled if everything equals 0, and they are hooked up to the chest. Essentially, if this chest is empty, this inserter will pick up one item and put it in the chest. This one will do the same to there, that one will do the same to there. So when this one becomes empty, the inserters will move the chain forwards and put another 2 items into the provider chest. The provider chest is part of... let's go to the map view for this. This logistics network here, which covers all of them. And this is our sort of requesting area. Each of these are requester chests that request 10 of each of the items. So we've got 202 solid items here. We've got fluids down below, which I'll get to in a moment. 202 items. So each of these requests 10. These ones... Go a bit closer. Yeah. So yes, that requests 10. Deconstruction planners in this case. This one here, again, override stack size 1, enable when it receives a G for go signal. This one here is just a steel chest, which is just reading the contents, and then this is another one which will empty that chest again when G equals 0. So, every minute, a G signal will be pumped into these inserters. This one will empty the chest and put it on this belt. This one will take one item from the requester and put it in the iron chest. And then, I think it's 3 seconds later, another part of the circuit network will count how many items we have, and if we have less than 202, i.e. if one of the items are being produced at less than 1 per minute, the counter will stop. And I've got a counter set below, which I'll show you. There you go, there's a counter ready to go. The items that get output, they go onto this belt, which comes up here. This one filters out the blueprints, deconstruction planners, and blueprint books. As I said, they can't be crafted, and then that goes back over here, so they just feed round on a loop. Everything else comes over here to our solid trash section, and gets put into this logistics network here. So at the moment, all I have, these are all void chests at the top. If you are playing this map on, not on creative, if you are playing it on vanilla, you want to swap out this top row for active providers. So you can just about see this solid trash system is its own logistics network. So if you put active providers in the top row here, the 350 bots that are in this roboport will empty them to somewhere else in this system. Moving down, actually, let me describe the lights first. So the lights are hooked up to each requester chest. If there are 10 items or more, this light turns on. 9 items, this one turns on. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I think once it gets to about here, the lights become yellow. Once it gets to about here, the lights become red. So the more lights there are next to a given chest, the closer that chest is to completely running out. Hopefully it should become self-explanatory. Down here we have our fluid system, so this just comes straight in from the bus. It's a very similar system. We've got a little bit of a buffer set up here. These lights are set up to different amounts of fluid that are in there. So if they've got enough fluid, this green light will turn on, start dropping down, an orange light will turn on, and then drop down too much, and a red light will turn on. Now, I had to do quite a bit of thinking about this one, because while an inserter can be limited to one item per swing, and it will complete one swing from just a single tick's worth of input, fluid does not work like that. So what I've done, the way the pumps work, they will pump a maximum of 200 fluid per tick. So what I've done here is these are completely full, or as full as they can get. These ones are completely empty. So that means the pumps will indeed pump 200 per tick. But I don't want to test for 200 per tick, I want to test for 1 per minute. So instead, I've added, I've added in this bit of circuit logic here. What this will do is every 200 minutes, instead of every 1 minute, it will send these pumps the go signal. So the fluid, while I suppose it averages out to 1 a minute, it's actually testing for 200 every 200 minutes. I hope you will forgive me. So it will pump. A few seconds later it will test to see if all of these tanks have something in them. And then a few seconds after that, these pumps will activate and empty the tanks into our fluid trash. So again, if you are playing on, I keep saying creative, if you are playing on vanilla, eventually these tanks will fill up and the system will back up and it won't work. If you are playing on creative, just right down the bottom here I've put in some fluid voids, so that won't happen. Okay, in order to turn the system on, we have two switches here. One says on, one says reset. So to turn it on, we just need to switch this constant combinator on and leave it on. If for any reason we want to reset the system, we first turn that one off, then come to the reset switch, and then turn reset on and then off. And that will reset the counter to 0, and everything will be good to go. This last little thing up here, this is just a little display. It says bus backed up. So, you may have noticed a little earlier, next to each item there is a tiny bit of circuit logic plus a light. Essentially, if that item is backed all the way up to this inserter, or the equivalent, the light will be green. If not, the light will be red. Items that have multiple lanes, they have... The logic works a little bit differently, but essentially it's the same. So if there is iron moving through these belts here, the light will be red. If they are just stopped and on them, then the light will be green. And then back down to this side. This one here simply counts up the number of reds, and if there are any reds, i.e. if not everything is backed up, this will stop saying backed up and will instead say not backed up in red. I will show you that briefly. Let me grab a constant combinator. I'll just hook this up thusly and manually feed in a red signal. See, not backed up. Backed up. Yeah, just so you know what that does. So if you're going to turn off and reset the system to turn it back on, it will only be reliable to start once the system is backed up all the way. Now, as I said, I'm not 100% sure this is going to work. I've tested it and it does run for a couple of hours, certainly. but I haven't really tested it past the sort of 3 to 4 hour mark. And I have noticed, as I said, the red circuits in particular causing some issues. So I guess we'll wait and see. One thing we can do, and I actually intend to do, this chest here has 60 Zs in it. Rather than hard-code it in, what I've done is I've told the system here that 1 second is made up of Z ticks. So by default, there are 60 ticks in a second. This is like normal speed. I can kind of cheat the system. So for example, let's say I want to produce 1 item every 2 minutes. I just change Z to 120. If I just need to give myself a little bit of leeway, I might change it to 66, so 10% higher. So that's something I might look at doing. I don't believe there is much else to say, actually. Let's just have a quick look at power. Yeah, so at idle we draw 1.2 gigawatts. At maximum, when we're charging up the accumulators, we draw 4.9. And so this is 4.9. Let's go. Yeah, you can see these are stretches where I've been testing the system. So if this is about the 1.2, that'll be about 2. Yeah, so while it's active, it probably draws around about the 3 gigawatt mark. Let's see, anything else I should mention? I don't believe so. So I'm going to say that's it for this episode. There'll be one special episode at the end. I will link to... Yeah, I'll link to that episode in a card. I should remember this one because it's the series finale. That episode will be a time-lapse of me standing here like this. I'll try and keep all the lights in view. I've already tested this. Time-lapse does work. You can see at the moment I'm running at 7 frames a second, but my updates are still 60. So because it's a time-lapse, the frames don't matter at all. So I will just stand here. You'll see the counter count up. It will automatically stop once an item has failed the 1 per minute test. Yeah, so I will see you in that episode. I'm probably going to take a little bit of a break from Factorio for a while. But I have another series planned out. Keep an eye out for Factorio Railyard. That will be my next series. And I'm going to try and make that a daily thing, with the shorter sort of 20-minute episodes, everything on screen. Less editing work for me, more episodes for you. So, yeah, that should start appearing on YouTube maybe a week from now, maybe a couple of weeks, depends how I feel about it. In the meantime, I will say thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again soon.